Hello Year 6, welcome back to your English session for today. So, starting as ever with a bit of a starter. So, what I'd like you to do, there's 4 sentences there. I'd just like you to tick which one of those sentences uses a preposition for time, a time preposition. So, have a read through, try and remember what preposition, what they are, what they do, what their purpose is, and then tick which one you think contains a preposition of time, please. Pause the screen whilst you're doing that, and then when you've done it, start the video up again. We'll have a bit of a look at what we did yesterday, and then we'll move on to today's session. Speak to you in a moment. Okay, so yesterday we had a look at a waggle, what a good one looks like, an example of a persuasive letter. And one of the things that I asked you to identify, one of the things that you all spotted really accurately, was that it is written in a formal tone. And that's why today, our what we're learning to do, is to maintain that formal tone. And what I'll be looking for is that you're able to identify which words are formal or informal, that you're able to rewrite sentences to change between formal and informal, and that you're able as well to understand the times when those different types of formality are required and why they are required. So, no time like the present to get started then. So, formality. Formality is sort of dependent on, the level of formality at least, is dependent on what you're writing. So the purpose of your writing will change how formal or informal you need to be. A good example, if you're writing a letter or a job application, then you're going to need to be quite formal because you're trying to impress. However, if you're just writing to a friend, that's almost like a text message or a WhatsApp message or a Facebook message. That's going to be really informal. That's going to be really chatty, colloquial tone, much more informal. We use formal language generally when we're talking to someone we don't know, when we're talking to somebody in a formal setting, like work or a teacher at school, when we're writing non-fiction texts. That's the big one. Anything that's non-fiction, instructions, reports, non-chronological reports, explanation texts, all of those things, we use formal language. And then finally, also when we're writing formal letters or persuasive letters, as we are with this unit, as well as letters of complaint, letters of inquiry, that sort of thing. We use informal language when we're chatting, talking to friends, relatives, family members, when we're writing letters to friends and family members, emails to people that we know, texts, tweets, WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, etc. Informal writing normally contains lots of contractions, things like couldn't instead of could not. Informal writing also often has informal words, such as kids instead of children, or cool instead of very good. So that's when we use that chatty, colloquial language. So, here are some words and phrases, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have a little table drawn out that says formal, informal, with a line coming down the middle, and I'd like you to pause the screen and separate these into what are the formal things and what are the informal things, please. So you should have a list of all the things from those words and phrases that are formal and a list of all the things that are informal. When you've done that, I'll show you how I would have split those. So pause the screen and have a go at that, please. Speak to you again when that's done. Okay, so formal, you're going to have children, companions, yours sincerely, splendid and delicious. Informal, they all link, really. You're going to have things like children would be kids. How's it going? Why is that informal? Say it out loud if you can. It's informal because it's got the contraction. It should say how is it going if it's going to be formal. See you later, immediately informal because it's got an exclamation mark. only used in informal language, not used in formal writing. Mates instead of friends, yummy instead of delicious, awesome instead of splendid. So they're the informal and formal ones from that list. I think by now you'll be starting to see the difference between the two, if you haven't already. So the most formal sentences and the least formal sentences then. That's our next task. I'd like you to think about, of those 3 sentences, which one would you say is the most formal going down to the least formal? You can number them. Number 1, most formal sentence, to number 2, the least formal sentence. Pause the screen and have a go at that activity. When you've done it, start the video again, and I'll talk to you about what I think the order would be, and I'll explain the reasons why. Speak to you in a second. Okay, so I think the most formal is playing too many video games should be avoided. I think that is the most formal because it doesn't contain any of the informal language that we would look for. No contractions, there's no informal punctuation like exclamation marks. Every word is a formal word. It is as formal as you can make that sentence. I think the middle one is the one that I've put in black there. You really should try not to spend lots of hours on your PS. Now, nearly all formal, because it's not said you really shouldn't spend lots of hours. It said should try not to. However, it still said PS, so it's still got that shortening of a word, which is an informal technique. The most informal of all of them, though, because it contains a contraction and a shortening, is you shouldn't play on your PS2 too much. It's got PS2, which is a shortening, and it's also got shouldn't, which is a contraction. So it's got 2 things there that both add up to making it even more informal than the other one. So that's the order I would have put them in. So I'd have done 1, 3, 2 would have been my order. Okay, and it just goes over that there. So no words that have made into contractions. There's no abbreviations, as I've said, and that other one that uses the contraction shouldn't and the word PS2 instead of PlayStation. So there are contractions and abbreviations, both making it incredibly informal. Okay, another go then. This time, I'd like you to again identify the most formal sentence and why, going down to the least formal sentence and why. We've talked about it now, so everyone this time should be able to have a pretty clear go. Pause the video, have a go at that. When you've done it, start the video up again, and we'll talk through what I believe the right answer should be. Speak to you in a second. Okay, so I think the most formal is the second one. It is vital you eat fruits and vegetables to maintain a healthy diet. I think the middle formality would be the first one. Eating fruits and vegetables is great for your health. And the third one is the most informal. If you don't eat fruit and vegetables, you won't be very healthy. And there are reasons for that. I think the top one, or the most formal one, it uses words like vital and maintain. So quite formal sort of vocabulary being used. It doesn't have any contractions. So it's a really very formal sentence. It's more formal than the other one, the one that I left in black, because it contains more formal language. The language itself is the difference there. It contains words, like I say, like vital, maintain, etc. So it's much more the sort of thing you'd expect to hear an actual information leaflet or your doctor or someone who knows a lot about nutrition to say. That's how they would say it, which makes it more formal. The least formal, well, I'm sure you already know, it's the least formal, it's the most informal because it contains contractions. Straight away, 2 contractions, don't and won't instead of do not and will not. So that's my reasonings for those. Last task before the main one. I'd like you to complete this table below by ticking formal or informal. You can do this by writing out the sentence and writing formal or informal. That's all you need to do, or F or I even. So you're just going to go down and you're going to say, is that sentence, is that clause a formal or informal sentence? So you've got a text message to a friend, a job application letter. Sorry, you're not saying whether the sentence is or isn't. You're saying whether or not that type of text would be formal or informal. So is a text message to a friend formal or informal? Is a job application letter formal or informal? Okay, so you're going to go down, think about all those different genres of writing, all those different types of text, and you're going to say, are they formal or informal? When you've done that, I'm going to tell you the final task to be getting on with. Speak to you in a second. Okay. It's another task. There's so many tasks on this one today. Another nice and quick one. All you need to do is tick whether or not the sentence that has been written down is formal or informal. Straight away, I can see on that first one, it's my daughter's birthday, please come. Not only has it got a contraction at the beginning, it's also got a contraction for daughters, and it's also got an exclamation mark at the end. So that should be telling you straight away which one of those two categories it goes into. When you've done that, I will tell you now actually, because then you can pause the video here, do that task, and you don't need to start the video again. Your final task, please, is to look back at your cold writes, to go through and to find any areas where you were informal. You're going to then circle them or underline them. And at the end, after your cold write was finished, you're going to write that out differently to make it formal. So you're going to turn them from informal to formal. Remember, there are lots of ways it could have been informal. It could have been word choice, could have been contractions, or it could have been use of informal punctuation. So there are lots of different ways you could have been informal there. So have a go at this task too, and then have a go at that final task. Going back over your cold write and amending any areas where you were informal to making them formal. When you've done that, take a picture of all the tasks from today. I know there were lots of little tasks, but they were all quite quick. So take a picture of all that, send it in to me, and I'll give you any feedback you need. I'll speak to you later. Well, not later actually. I'll speak to you tomorrow with your final lesson of the week. It is subordinating, no, not subordinating conjunctions. What's wrong with me recently? We're looking at, I've had a complete subjunctive form. Sorry, I had a complete mind blank. We're looking at the subjunctive form tomorrow. So it's a tough lesson that. Hopefully my mind will be a bit more on it than it was just then, where my head just floated away from me. But I'll speak to you tomorrow with your subjunctive form lesson. But for now, goodbye.